So Nintendo came onto the scene, revealed their Switch 2 and a price point that left eyes watering in the United States of America. The rest of the world actually was pretty okay. £395 for an upgraded Switch, pretty on point when you think about it. The Switch original, I believe, was $329.99, or was it $429.99? Something similar to that. I think the OLED was at least $429. I could be remembering wrong, but somewhere around there is where the figures roughly I remember. So there hasn't been a drastic change in the UK pricing. However, in the US there has been. And that's where the biggest contention is. When you're looking at the pricing of games over in the UK, you can get Donkey Kong for as little as £58 digitally. Whereas in the US, it's a lot more expensive. And we live in a time where generally the dollar sign changes to a pound sign. So it's clear that this is targeted at the United States and not anywhere else. I've also seen similar prices in Europe, whether it's in France or Germany. They've also had very similar prices based on the euro against our pound. I think where Donkey Kong here in the UK digitally is £58, in France and Germany it is $59.99, so it's like €1 extra. So it's clear that the rest of the world, or at least Europe and the UK, haven't been hit by this, but America has. And so the question came up, is this a targeted thing based on the tariffs? And you've got now Doug Bowser, who's the Nintendo CEO, saying, you know, he justifies the Mario Kart World's $80 price tag, says it takes advantage of variable pricing. Now, I'm going to get to variable pricing in a minute because I think this is really dangerous. And if this is actually allowed to stand and stay, this is going to be really bad for gamers. Like, really, really bad for gamers. In fact, I can quite comfortably say that Nintendo will be the downfall of, people being able to afford to game. I guess the only winner here is going to be Xbox with their Game Pass, because subscription services like that offer hundreds of games for a price of $14.99, at least that's the price in the UK, it's going to be extremely appealing. So it's crazy that this variable pricing is even being talked about, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Now, if we look at the screen here, Nintendo says tariffs weren't factored into the $450 price of the Switch 2, whereas news was already going around that they had factored 20% of the price into the Switch 2 in order to beat the tariffs that were coming in. But the 54% that came in clearly, bamboozled and threw a spanner into the works and meant that they had to go elsewhere. Experts believe that the Switch 2 costing $150 more than the original Switch did at launch is partly due to Nintendo anticipating Trump's tariffs. Even though Bowser is saying that this isn't the case, I just do not believe it. That's that's me. I don't believe it. They're not going to openly say it, because then that would make Nintendo look horrendously bad, right? Because at that point, they're anticipating something and increasing the price of something based on a what if he does this. There was no guarantee that Trump was going to go through with it. So Nintendo coming out and openly admitting, and this is what people aren't getting, them openly admitting that they raised the price based on their assumption that Trump was going to do this, how bad would that make Nintendo look? Just think about that for a second. Forget about everything else you're reading. Just think about that for a second and you will see that what I am saying is making logical sense. But the reality is that 20% wasn't enough. And in reality, it was 54%. And that's where the real problems were actually at. So that's why the pre-orders were removed, because their original estimate of 20% wasn't it. So whatever this is actually saying, sure, it paints a good picture that look, I'm just going to put it out there for you. Can Nintendo openly come out and say, we preemptively assumed that the tariff was going to come in? So what would have happened if the tariff didn't come in? They just increased the price by 20% on a what if, and it didn't pan out the way they wanted. Do you think they were going to drop that price? The answer is no. They were going to take that money with that price and say, well, we just made an extra 20% on each console. And they're going to just leave it as that. They're not going to turn around and say, oh, we actually made an assumption that it was going to be this price, and now we're actually reducing it down so it can actually, you know, be the real price. Then no company's going to do that. None at all, right? None at all. And even this grand plan that, you know, Trump has, that's going to, and, you know, in theory, what he's actually planning is actually really good. It's just not going to work out the way he wants. So let's just say hypothetically, the Switch 2 built in wherever it's built gets imported and it's $500. Then you can build all of it in the US. Do you think that they're going to sell it for $300? Or are these corporations going to turn around and say, well, if we really increase the price of $490, it's still cheaper than our competition, the ones that are importing it, by $10, and we're just making an extra $190 per sale. That's in reality what's going to happen, right? So let's move aside that there is going to be a happy ending here, because there isn't. That's just not how capitalism works. But in this situation, they cannot come out in good faith and say that the price of $450 did include the 20%. They cannot say that because it wasn't actually revealed yet. So they've denied it because they've got plausible deniability. And this is something that they can argue in court and get away with. If anyone actually wanted to take them to court, they would lose because they have plausible deniability. This was a win-win situation for Nintendo, which actually shows just quite how scummy it actually was, really. But this was actually a win-win situation for Nintendo, where they could increase the price internally, knowing that it might happen or it might not happen, and if it doesn't happen, they were never going to reduce the price. And obviously then people would have reacted and complained, and maybe at that point, if there was enough backlash, they may have lowered the price down a little bit to show goodwill, to show that the community has won, and then get more people to buy the console. But that's not the case here. Instead, the tariffs actually went through, and now they increased the price even more. So there's no way in any universe, multiverse, whatever you want to call it, that anyone is going to come down. I mean, God could come down today and tell me that that was the case, and I still wouldn't believe it. That's how certain I am that this is the case, because Nintendo did this deliberately. They increased the price by 20%, and because they believed that it was going to go through, and they believed they were going to get 20% tariff. But they just can't admit to that, because I'm pretty sure at some point that would be illegal. Or at least show them in really bad faith, right? I don't know the laws, so I'm just saying, putting it out there. But then we come back to this, and this is where I think things get a lot more darker. The console being priced at £400 in the UK, €429.99 with Mario Kart. I think it's like €440 in Europe, which seems fair, right? 440. It seems fair because the pound is stronger than the euro, so it's an exchange rate. Overall, I think that's okay. I expected the cost of the console to go up by $100 anyway, so it's kind of in tandem. But here you see where he says, what you see right here is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Now, the CEO of 2K was actually talking about this. He was talking about this last year, where he was saying games like Grand Theft Auto are played for hundreds and thousands of hours, and charging people at the time 50-60 quid for something that's thousands of hours worth of entertainment feels like it's not enough for the companies, and they should find a way to monetize that time. This is essentially what Nintendo is doing, just not at the scale that Strauss wanted to do it. However, can you imagine now games coming out that are live service, or games coming out like, let's say, Assassin's Creed, where there is 200 hours, 300 hours worth of gameplay in there? They're going to pad the living crap out of these games just so they can say, well, this game is now really, it's got so much content, right? Look at all these side quests that you have to go and kill that same rabbit 100 times. And, because of all those side quests where you have to go and kill that rabbit 100 times so you can get the drops and bring them back to the same NPC, 50 quests back to back, well, you know, it's no longer really a £70 game now, is it? It's more like a £120 game, because we're giving you like 300-400 hours worth of gameplay that you can use. But if you choose not to take part in that, that's really on you now. Grand Theft Auto could easily now come out at 150 based on what this is saying. This is a very, very dangerous, slippery road going down. This could be detrimentally bad for gaming. And in my opinion, it will be. Because at this point, games that are like 8 hours long, 10 hours long, they're going to probably be priced accordingly, right? At 50 quid, no. They're going to be priced at 70 bucks. You'll be lucky if you get 60. But those games that are going to be pushing the boundary with their open world shenanigans, they're going to be hitting that 100 bucks within no time. Because Nintendo is about to set a standard. And people need to push back on this. It's good that they're actually putting Mario Kart into, you know, a bundle, and you can get it for basically 30 bucks, at least here in the UK. But the point that Doug was making was the previous Mario Kart lasted what, 7 years, 10 years, and paying 60 bucks for it, or 50 bucks what it was at the time, isn't enough. They want more because the game lasts longer. Just release payable DLC. Right? Just release payable DLC that will add content and do it that way. I'm pretty sure they do anyway, but the Battle Pass probably didn't give them enough money. Those are all the factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the games. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. So basically, let's say they made another Xenoblade. Let's say, you know, they published Xenoblade and it's a 300-hour game. That's going to be 100 bucks, right? But then they release like a small-ish game that really is maybe 20 hours long. That will be 60 bucks. And so this is how they're doing it, because that's why Donkey Kong is actually priced lower, because it's probably not a very long game. It's actually a lot shorter and doesn't have the replay value that something like Mario Kart does, which will last pretty much for the whole generation with the updates. This sets a dangerous precedence for all the other games that are coming along. All the other games in development are going to look at this. It only takes one. We saw this with 2K when they did the £70 price. Everyone jumped on it. And now we're about to see Nintendo do the same thing, but in a catastrophic way that will change the gaming landscape in terms of purchasing games forever. And I think this is a bad thing, and I really hope he goes back on this, but it doesn't look like Nintendo has any plan on going back on this. In fact, they're out there lying about the Switch 2 being $450 and not having anything to do with the tariffs. That's a pure lie, because they're not going to come out and tell you, hey, we anticipated it, but we didn't really think about it. And if the tariffs weren't going to happen, we were going to knock down the price. Yeah, they were never going to do that. And they weren't going to come out and say we've revealed the $450 price tag because we anticipated that the tariffs would go through. They weren't going to tell you that either, because then that would look even worse. The optics on that would be crazy. So right now, I think Nintendo deserves all the heat that they're getting, because they're handling this literally the worst possible way possible, and people should be upset about what Nintendo is doing. They are setting a new standard, they are setting a new precedent, and they are setting a new benchmark for the way not only consoles are being priced, but in terms of how gaming, games in general are going to be priced going forward. And I think this is unacceptable, and it is bad for the consumer. The only winner, like I said, I see here, if Microsoft is smart, is that they'll keep Game Pass at the same price it is right now and continue to drive and advertise. Instead of paying $100, $120, £150 for a game, or $50 for a game, sign up to Game Pass. Get 400, 500 games, day one Xbox games for a low price of $15 a month. Sign up now, get a year's membership. That's what I would do if I was Microsoft, because subscription services, playing on your TV, these are about to become really popular if this is about to be the real thing, which is crazy. I never thought it would funnel people in that direction, but that's exactly what Nintendo are doing, because no one has kept Nintendo in check for the longest time. They've been able to do what they want, when they want, how they want, and no one's really been their competition. And now we're seeing what no competition truly does when it comes to a company. And I mean, even Sony recently just announced that they were also doing the same. They are looking to increase the price of the PS5, the PS5 Pro, because they need to see what it is in terms of pricing, and they needed to look after their earnings and their company. It's right here. As you can see here, Sony now confirmed they will be looking after their business and earnings before all else, as the tariffs will be impacting their financial sales. This means that the prices of PS5 consoles and games could be seeing a rise also. Obviously this will affect Xbox as well in some fashion, but as you can see here, we intend to continue to respond flexibly promptly to changing circumstances and implement at the appropriate time additional measures that we are preparing in order to minimize the impact on our business and earnings. That means the customer doesn't even come into this. The customer doesn't even factor into this. No, you know, not for Nintendo or anyone. Any third-party studio, the customer will never factor into this. What will factor into this is the bottom line of the company, and those extra charges are going to be passed on to the consumer. This is bad, guys. This is bad. This is looking bleak. I really hope some of this is going to get recounted. I really hope that whatever this mess is going on right now with tariffs and whatnot can get resolved soon, because our hobby is about to become a rich man's hobby. It's sad, but that's what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let's have that discussion, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out and remain legend.